then we put on and we're ready to go. All right, well done. Thank you for that. Hi there, my name is Jay, and we have Auren and Douglas, and we are part of CompuMatter. And this podcast, Tech Translated, is designed to make things that are normally complex for the layperson broken down and made easy for the rest of you. Although last week we had a problem with our own technology, we are not experts on podcasting. This is a trial and error. This is a side effect of live. When you go live, anything could go wrong and you're just stuck with it. And so some of this podcast stuff, we realized, oh yeah, we got a problem with bandwidth and that needs to be addressed and cause hiccups and all that kind of stuff. But I think we're back and I think we've solved that. So let me introduce Auren on my left.
I'm Auren. I'm the on-site technician here, and we also do a lot of questions, one-on-one training, and repairs.
And I'm Douglas, the manager down here, and we're always looking for ways to help lower people's frustration with technology because there's plenty of it.
A lot.
Frustration,
as we experienced.
Yes. Well, that leads me into a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and this is something that everybody that's watching can relate to. That reminds me of the last podcast when I ended up with the statement, and now I have the answer to the question that everybody's been asking. That's another story. I don't really have that answer, at least not this podcast, not yet. But everybody deals with rejection. If you have a computer, if you have a phone, if you have an iPad, you deal with rejection, and I want you to know it's normal. It's part of the process of interacting with technology. It may be part of life, but I've been dealing with rejection since the days of DOS. I remember, wrestling with it, and the beginning stages getting angry with it, getting not angry but frustrated, and allowing my emotions to play a role. And because in life you kind of believe that affected something. Emotions
were a huge part of this business.
But the computer continued to just look back at me stoically, made absolutely no difference, and eventually it changed me. It made a patient man out of me. A much more patient person than I think I would have otherwise been. Yeah, I always joke with
customers that computers have beaten the patience into me over time. Because no amount of emotions are going to affect anything.
It's really an interesting side effect, and probably the best strategy for anybody. We've had people throw laptops across the room.
Yeah.
And we get them in here, and they tell us that's what happened.
It's a common trope is having customers come in with the emotions on high, because they typically are bringing it in after they've already exhausted all the resources of trying to figure it out themselves.
And sometimes they vent at us.
Yeah.
They're still carrying their anger through the door, and they figure, well, these guys are here part of their job is to diffuse or take this stuff, and then we have to try to bring logic to the table.
Talk people from the ledge, and
we
then
put on our Star Trek. What's that guy's name with the pointy ears? Spock.
Yeah, Spock.
Yeah, we look back at them like we're Spock, and we just talk very
itemize the issue and
monotone and matter of fact, and we take all emotion out of the equation. Explain that it has no purpose
except for the empathy. Well, we'll usually broach it with some empathy because we understand the frustration, but then straight into what are the symptoms, how do we solve this problem.
Spock with empathy, that's kind of an odd combination.
Spock AI.
Yeah, I think more like an engineer.
I think that happened on their last episode or something.
No, there's some newer Star Trek where he laughs. There is some newer ones. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want you to know that rejection is part of it. You should all feel better just knowing that, and it's an iterative process. So it's not going to work. It's going to look back at you stoically. You're going to have to do it again and again and again and again. And when you solve it, at that moment, you're going to realize, okay, well, wait a second. Wouldn't that be better if I did this? If I adjusted this? And then it will reject you some more, and you'll get that done.
There is a lot of guess and check work in any line of work, and that is rejection to rejection. Until you can find out something that works and isn't getting rejected, then you can test all the other parts of the puzzle.
Have you ever noticed at the moment that you win this is the case with me, and I think it's probably normal. The moment that you win, you are on to the next challenge, and it might be related to the same thing you're working on, the document, the picture, the video, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You won, and you figured out how to create that table or how to create that animation or whatever, and then immediately you want to do this next thing, which lines you up for a whole new series of that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and it goes on to the rest of your life.
We joke about it being a 95% rejection rate. I don't know if it's actually that high, but it is pretty common that you're going to run into issues, whether you're dealing with software or hardware, whatever you're working on with technology. There's going to be some bug.
Yeah, I mean, did you get rejected this morning yet?
Not yet. No.
Well, tell
Doing
them
good
about
so
tell them
far.
about your rejection.
I mean, I haven't
This one's
rejected. That's why it was on the top of my head. It's like I'm trying to set up this podcast, and first of all, I came in to do one thing, and the backup drive wouldn't work, and I had to figure out what was going on that, and it just gave me so much rejection in so many areas. Finally, I got all that done. It's time for the podcast. I get things set up, and my computer will not open any images, and there's no reason for it. All of a sudden, sorry, can't do it. You know, whatever. Pick your message,
Yeah.
and so. Guess what I did to try to resolve it?
Turn it off and turn it back on again? It's a good place to start if something isn't doing what it's supposed to try to turn it off and back on again. A big one is if your computer appears to be off but there is a little light on it, hold down the power button. It might be in a half on, half off state, and you might be able to save yourself some brain damage.
Well, it's this thing called it's like homeostasis. It's a place that is normal, that you know is repeatable, and when your computer freshly starts, it shouldn't be anything that's happened since then that caused it.
Except for Windows updates.
And then I started the computer; it still wouldn't open it. Now the podcast is late, and finally, for reasons I do not even know.
To be continued on that one.
I don't even know.
But once things
started working,
you did
you did the same thing. You tried to open it up again, and then it
all of a
opened?
sudden,
I was sitting here in front of me. He's like, "This won't work," and he clicks on it, and it opens up. And he's like, "No way!" It's just everything works normally.
We were that close to not having a podcast.
He does that to me all the time, where I've been trying something and do the exact same thing, and then I ask him. He comes over, does the same thing, and it works. I'm like, okay, well, I'll see you more today.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that with customers coming in the door explaining a problem, and then we turn on the machine and it doesn't have any of those problems. There's
man.
Plenty of times, and they say they've been frustrated with it for days, and now it works perfectly fine on the bench in front of them, and they're like, well, it works for you, but it doesn't work for me, and then take it and go, and then I'll never see them again. There's just some times where they'll bring it in and the car's not making the noise anymore, basically.
Right.
There's a lot of those interactions.
That reminds me, sometimes when a customer comes in and they've got a problem, one of the things that I would enjoy doing, if I recognize what they did, they're describing it to me, and having been in the business for a while, I say, okay, I know exactly what that is.
That half on, half off state where it has the light on it, but the screen's not doing anything. Being able to hold down the power button, and shut it down and turn it off, but they don't know what's going on.
I got a black screen and nothing happens no matter what I do. And we know from being in the business that if there's a power light on, like he said, then it's just caught in a state of suspended animation. It could be electricity, some kind of a power glitch or whatever.
Update failure.
The cure is oftentimes just holding down the power button. So I'll be talking to the customer while holding down the power button, and they don't see me holding down the power button. And then I'll press the power. I said, let me give it a try, and I'll press the power button, and I'll go like this over the top of their computer. And while they're looking on,
like sprinkling magical dust over the top of it.
And then the computer comes up beautifully, and they're just impressed with that math. How did you do that?
We play around with that a little bit.
Yeah, I had one gal come to me with her keyboard wouldn't work, and no matter what she did, the letter K wouldn't work, no matter what she did. And so I pressed it a little bit, and I felt a little crunching something or other there, but she didn't see me pick that up. Yeah. So I pushed it harder to really grind it down into some kind of fine powder, and then went on to say, let me try it. and press the key, and the cake. It's just, I've been trying to run a whole day. I haven't been able to get that to work.
And on that note, I would say try to not eat over your laptop. It is something that slowly gets filled up with little crumbs and stuff that fill up the little cracks in the keyboard and the touchpad. With MacBooks, with Mac laptops, the crack around the trackpad seems to be so thin that a little bit of grease or a little bit of crumbs that get in it can actually stop the clicker from working. And I've had a few where just taking a razor and going around the trackpad, you can get it to click again. So for those with Mac laptops who have issues with the clicker, it could be small amounts of debris building up in that little crack.
But if you're a slob, use one of these.
Oh, an external keyboard. Yeah.
Right.
So for a laptop, if you use an external and you break it or you spill something on it, you can at least replace it.
People
It's
don't
not
realize
inside the laptop.
you can pour a cup of coffee on this, and it doesn't hurt your computer at all.
Well, I don't know if that's
Well,
a guarantee. I haven't seen it happen.
He guarantees it.
Testing it out live on
the other one
podcast.
is, with external keyboards like this, they do have silicone covers that cover these, and they make them for laptops as well. And I've seen people who have spilled multiple times on their keyboard on their laptop before. Getting one of those silicones could save you all those repair costs or replacing the computer, depending on how bad it is.
Yeah, because some models, if you spill, especially with coffee or drinks that have sugar in them, spilling it on your keyboard goes down into your motherboard and fries your whole system so that it won't turn on again.
Right. Don't
We
try
had
that
a
on
customer
Big deal.
who spilt something on their computer. We replaced it, and then they spilt something on the new computer. And then after that, it was the silicone keyboard cover, and I have not seen that customer since. So hopefully it has saved them, or they just learned a very expensive lesson and have not made that the same mistake.
That's tough.
Yeah, went back to the typewriter.
Yeah, some people joke about that. I'm just going to go back to the notepad and pen. I don't need this frustration.
Yeah, but that's the topic I wanted to start off with: frustration and iterations. And don't give up. Just keep on iterating, and someday you'll be 40 years older than when you started, like me, and you'll still get rejected. But somewhere in that process, there will have been progress.
You get rejected differently as you learn how to solve certain problems. You're just getting rejected different ways.
Because the technology changes. You've got this one thing down. You're a master of DOS. Then Windows comes out. You're a master of Windows, and the Internet comes out.
Yeah, I know so many things about repairing Windows 7 software that I will never have to use again. Well, I guess I still have some customers who bring in some Windows 7, but rare.
Windows
way more rare.
7, yeah.
Yeah, I have knowledge in XP as well. I actually have used that one more. I think more people tend to have XP than any of the other older operating systems.
I have seen XP quite a lot, at least recently, which is interesting. But it was a good operating system.
Well, it's just because the software that works once you have it, and it's not subscription-based, pay for the rest of your life, people tend to value that and want to hold on to it. And I definitely don't fault them for that.
Software as a service.
It's getting there.
That didn't exist when I grew, when I was coming along.
Yeah.
I was one of the first entities that I knew it existed. I wasn't one of the very first, but I was certainly in the very early stage of charging people for websites on a monthly basis back in the 90s. Now it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changes fast. Again, speaking on frustration, if there is a specific problem that you're having, that you're frustrated with, we have chat open on Facebook and on YouTube. So if anybody has something that they would like help with, we'll gladly answer anything on the messages there.
Yeah. I also wanted to bring up another interesting thing about computers that I experience on the regular, where if you do one thing, say you're trying to log into a website, and you type in the password and you look at it, and it for some reason times out or doesn't work, doing the exact same thing a second time sometimes works.
Yeah.
There's usually no logic to it. Sometimes it just works to try it again if you experience frustration. So
that's a
the
really
same
fun
password,
one.
you say?
So basically,
just, with anything computers, I often run into this weird wall where it errors out or times out and doesn't really give me a good explanation as to why. So I just click the button again, and it works. Second time.
Yeah, so I've actually had that with 3 times before when it comes to entering a password for a customer, and the craziness of entering it 2 times and having it get rejected, to enter it one more time without getting emotional or reacting and having it just go in like no problem. It just allows me past it. And it doesn't give me an error any of the other times. It didn't give me an error saying the password's wrong. It didn't give me an error saying that something's not loading correctly. It just did nothing twice. And then I entered it a third time and it was like, all right, you're in the account.
It's like, wow,
And the
good
customer's
job.
like, well, this job will make you crazy. I'm like, well, that's technically the definition of insanity, but I figured third time's the charm. We might as well try it that one more time. And it does happen a lot with a bunch of different type of software, so it is kind of a weird one. But every
Yeah.
now and then trying it again, even though it sounds crazy, does have its effectiveness.
Yeah, which is why I figured I'd bring it up, because most people are dealing with all of these issues and they say, I've tried this, I've tried that, and then, you know, they bring it to us and we try the same thing and it works. So that would be a potential case
And
where...
that has to do with that 95% rejection. Sometimes the rejection can be nothing in your control and then literally just goes back to working how it's supposed to. Like you opening a file this morning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was actually a perfect example of that, because you quite literally did the same thing and then
Yeah.
it worked.
I did, and that leaves me wondering I have had probably only one or two, I think two viruses that I think I can recall in my lifetime. And that's just because I've been in the business and I'm too close to it, and my radar is always out there.
Yeah.
But when stuff like that happens, and all of a sudden you couldn't open any files on your computer, and then you can, it leaves me wondering. Okay,
software corruption.
something
Yeah,
going
or
on.
software corruption. Your whole environment is a lot more complicated than the average person, and you got a lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on in your
Yeah.
computer. So little bugs and glitches like that, I tend to be less surprised than if it was on somebody's streaming device for their Netflix and they don't do anything else with it.
Yeah, yeah.
But on that note, there is one
True.
type of infection I've seen before that is very rare. I have only seen it once, and that is one of my tech USB drives for running virus services. I plugged it into a computer, and it took all of the files and then put them inside of a folder, and then made a little folder icon, so that when I plugged that same flash drive into my next machine to do work on, it showed up as a file inside of the flash drive that had all my files on it. And from there, I wiped the drive and then ran the virus service with a different flash drive. But essentially what it had done, it had made a new folder and then put all the files that I have on my USB inside of it, but then it ran an executable on top of that. So when you go to open that file to see what's on your flash drive, it runs a program.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so that's basically, you can plug in a flash drive into a computer that's infected and get your flash drive infected.
Which is another reason why a lot of people warn you if you find a USB stick, even if you're curious what's on it,
Yes.
just in a random location like a library or anything else.
Yeah.
Don't plug it into your computer. It's not worth the risk. It could be infected with malware. So,
Well, there was a CIA hack a while back where somebody had gone outside the facility,
And just dropped
And just
USB drives
ripped it.
on the
Right.
ground in the parking lot.
and
I remember
employees that didn't know any, they thought that was the only one. They'd pick it up, stick it in their pocket, and next thing you know, it ends up in a computer, and that's how they get compromised.
I've been doing this for 20 years. I've only seen one case of it affecting the USB drive, but it's still worth a cause for pause if you find a USB drive. Otherwise, if you're using a Linux system and you're off of the internet, I have a feeling you could probably plug that in, format it, and be able to use it.
yeah.
Depends on the level of sophistication on, the hacking technology.
Stick it in a Linux machine.
Yeah,
If you
stick it in
happen
a
to
Linux
have a
machine,
sandbox
probably.
Linux, yeah.
Yeah, and then format it from there, and you'll be safe. Do you want to verify that this is coming through okay? Or
Yeah,
you already have?
I already checked audio,
All right, good.
and it still says live.
All
Doesn't
right.
look
Are you
like we're
on
having
YouTube
any-
and Facebook?
That's what I'm wondering. It's about the YouTube
Well,
because
I checked Facebook.
yeah. Let me just check YouTube real quick. Okay.
And again, with all the frustration that's out there, remember we are here
don't
from
see
11 to
anything on
5,
YouTube.
Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 4
You?
on Saturday, and we'll be glad to
All
help
right,
you out with as
beautiful,
much as
beautiful.
possible.
All right. So what the heck else we got going on besides frustration?
Well, more frustration coming soon. Windows Mail is going to end here in December, what is it, 31st?
Yeah.
Oh, Windows Mail, yes. We tried to talk about this last week, and I'm not going to hijack your conversation, just to be clear.
No, that was passing that off to her.
Oh, okay. All right. But yeah, we were talking about Windows Mail last week, and we had a technology glitch, and things failed us. So let's carry on.
Now it's working.
Yeah, no, it was really ironic going through the video last week because he had mentioned, as mentioned previously, that he had the answer to everybody's question or something along those lines.
Right.
Stream cuts out right there, so we'll never know.
That was the answer. That was what does PST stand for?
Oh, yeah.
And it's nothing to do with post-traumatic syndrome spelled sideways.
No, personal storage table.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
It's
Personal storage
an Outlook PST file is a personal storage table, which will mean nothing to you if you didn't see that last podcast fail. But anyway, back to Windows Mail.
So when it comes to Windows Mail, it's one of those programs that a lot of users use. It's the default one that comes on
Wrong camera.
10 and 11. Hi. And so coming, like they said, December 31st, that program is completely gone. So you'll be shifted into a program called Outlook New, which does require you to sign back into all of your email accounts, as well as give you advertising, as well as changing how everything looks a little bit. So due to that, what are you doing?
No, we just had a glitch.
Okay, due to that, a lot of people are coming in right now and having a lot of issue getting their email, and a lot of it is like an immediate crisis situation if they need their email for a number of reasons. So just to be cautious, make sure you know what your email password is and be prepared because it could change and update you at any point. It's slowly being rolled out. If you use Windows Mail, it's the default blue icon in Windows.
Okay.
And I'll make a quick note on that is a lot of people don't know that they're using third-party email software. So if you're on the Mac side, that little envelope that's down at the bottom that a lot of people check their mail on from default is very similar to the Windows Mail. It is a third-party application for accessing your mail rather than going to the website of whatever email you have. Most websites have a web view on their email. So say if you have Google Mail, you go to gmail.com, check your mail. That's viewing it at the source, whereas Mac Mail and Windows Mail are made by Microsoft and Apple. So they're not directly connected to Yahoo, MSN, or some of the other ones.
There you go. You have to adjust your camera a little bit. Your hands can't be seen even though they're way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So seriously,
I think we're zooming in a little too tight or something like that.
Could
When
be.
all you can see is your head, you know.
Yeah,
Maybe
you'll
we
have
can
to get
adjust-
those tiny hands.
yeah, we should have to do that for gesturing.
Yeah, Windows Mail, as they were saying, it's December 31st. I had a customer the other day. Even though they said December 31st is the day, right now they're causing the failure. You open up mail, and it stops you and says, enter in your credentials. That's what you get.
It's trying to segue you to new Outlook before the cutoff time is really what it is.
Yeah.
So some people are getting segued at different times depending on their machine updating.
Now, Microsoft has been around for all the decades that I've been in the computer business, and I respect them for that, but I have an inherent dislike. There's something within me that rejects that.
Pushing everyone into subscription basis on your own platform?
Your mother
You don't
used
like
to tell
that?
me I had a problem with authority. I don't know. Maybe that's at the core of it.
So like, listen, you run on our operating system, you're going to pay for every extra feature that we want you to for the rest of your life at some point. We're going to force you into it.
I don't like
I
it.
don't like that either.
By the way, here's a OneDrive advertisement for
Yeah,
the 14th
right.
time this week.
and yeah, you sign up, and next thing you know, you're getting advertised to, and all these different ways that they do that. And so, for that reason, I probably have spent a lifetime looking at alternative products
Open source.
that provide the same benefit without being part of the machine.
And for people who don't know what open source means, that's a common term that's used for software.
Right. It means the source of something is open.
Thanks,
That's
Dad.
very helpful.
Yeah. And with like a was it maybe like a
So I was just
like a
looking for
sewer
better
with a sewer
definition there.
cover that's not on it or something
All right,
like that.
maybe Auren, do you have a description for open source?
I guess the simplest way to put it is The project itself is open for other people to work on it and collaborate together. So the code is public for everybody to see and make sure it's safe and edit and work on together. So
Yeah,
it's not just owned by a
Right.
corporation.
All software is made with source code, and that source code is open to the public.
Right,
So
right.
Yes.
freeware is another.
Yeah, and
common
Linux
one.
Linux is probably the biggest open source project in the world.
I would have to agree.
And so other companies have taken that Linux open source, literally brought it into their camp, turned it into something called Android.
Changed
Right.
the
Put it in a
graphical
phone
user
instead of
interface so
selling
it
those
looks
phones.
different. Yeah, because Linux is a base of the Android code,
Right.
and then iOS, they have a slightly off variant that's different, but very similar in the code still.
So, and if you use that as an example, how Linux has become, part
The
of the
backbone,
phone.
really, the backbone and the source of where a lot of the mobile devices came from. And iOS is, just for anybody who doesn't know, is the Apple operating system on their tablets and their smartphones.
Yep.
But you can get really good open source software that does wonderful things that you can build an empire on, as they have done with the phone. But you can also use it to download things that you do every day. It could be a photo manager. It could be instead of Microsoft Word and programs like that, you could be using LibreOffice, Libre, which I think translates to free in Spanish.
Yeah.
You can use a full suite of Office products, and guess what? Nobody's going to try to sell you anything, ever.
Yeah.
And
It's been really nice using
right.
LibreOffice and not getting ads.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I use Thunderbird as an email software. I've used Thunderbird for decades. Thunderbird has never put an advertisement in front of my face. Once in a great while, I mean,
I think it's asked for a donation
Maybe
before.
once every year or so, I'll get something that says consider donating to this open source project, which I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Once in a great while, as long as they're not throwing that in my face
if you're
every day.
offering free software, you do have to pay people to continue to update it. Nothing is absolutely free. And so the fact that they run off of donations is probably what keeps them around.
Yeah, I've got Thunderbird
Yeah.
on my regular donation list. Actually, I give them $5 a month or $20 a month or whatever it is,
Yeah.
because I've used them for
so
so long
long.
for nothing. I want them
You
to stay
value it.
around.
You get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't support things, they don't stay around. That includes CompuMatter. I mean, if you
come down and buy a computer locally if you're here in the neighborhood, or
Yeah.
get some remote work done if you have problems with your computer, and that'll help keep small businesses around because they are important.
Yeah, money makes the world go around, but that software as a service stuff, there's a lot of alternatives. In fact, we're building a server right now that's based on open source products with an underlying platform of Linux and programs like Nextcloud, programs like MediaWiki, and a variety of other programs that are open source software woven into this server that'll run a business and be a direct competitor to the Microsoft Small Business Server.
And ultimately, you got to make money to survive, but we want to be a good service for the community, and a lot of that open source software and those developers are doing the same thing. They're putting it out there into the world because they know it's needed, and they're doing the work without guaranteed pay. They're putting themselves out there to make life better for people who have computer issues or software things they need.
But some open source is bad. I mean, you can get a virus with open source.
Oh, yeah.
You want to make
That's
sure you
true,
do
too.
some kind of a review,
Research.
to make sure that, because there's so much of it out there, sometimes they don't have enough support, so it ends up having security vulnerabilities. So you do have to do your homework a little bit, or take our word for it with Thunderbird and Linux and that kind of stuff is concerned.
Yeah.
Or LibreOffice, those are all
Yeah,
great
and
products.
LibreOffice I've been using for a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have my theories on how LibreOffice got started. I still have to figure out where they originally came from, because it doesn't make sense that they'd be able to make a product so similar to Microsoft Office and just give it away to the world for free. But my theory is that some business with 10,000 employees paid some developers to make a free software instead of buying Office for 10,000 employees, because it ended up being cheaper to just pay a company to make it for free for the world, and then they could all have it.
I'd like to suggest a thought on that. Open source software oftentimes gets its start when somebody small, like myself or some other developer in the world, they've got enough knowledge to carry that ball a long way down, and then they realize there's only one of them. They can't create Microsoft Office organically by themselves. They can do this, and so all of a sudden they open it up for other developers to chip in.
To help out with.
And then developers from all over the world can then chip in. It's part of GitHub or something like that. And it's opened up.
Yeah, I could see
and now you've got hundreds of employees working on this simultaneously, and your job is only to check the code that they give you and manage it, and you grow and you grow and you grow. And some companies then start selling their product and kind of walk a line of, oh, well, this is open source, but now this is so popular, I think I'm going to start selling this and make some money.
All right. Hello, eBay Ukraine Hub. Welcome back. And we have a question from Shades of God. I have a question. I can use Windows 11 23H2, works good, but then when I update to Windows 11 24H2, everything messes up and doesn't work right, and I have to reinstall Windows.
Now, does it blue screen completely doesn't work, or I guess what exactly are the symptoms you're facing?
Yeah, I guess that one could go a couple of different directions, but ultimately there's also the question of the hardware compatibility.
Yep.
Another one with updates, which I have to throw out there, is I have had some cases with computers getting updates and then failing, that waiting a couple months, Windows figuring out what they have wrong on that update specifically for some hardware, and they correct it. So a part of me would say, at least, aside from testing your hardware and seeing if there's some other problem happening, waiting a little bit is also another good rule of thumb when it comes to updates. Because if everybody's updating their computers at the same time, and somebody's having problems and somebody else isn't, there could be a matter of time for Microsoft to figure out what update is messing what systems up and correcting it down the road.
They say it freezes up.
Freezes up. Okay.
Yeah, I never want to be first with any upgrade.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, I don't
unless
play-
it's fixing something that I know is broke.
I don't like to play guinea pig either.
Yeah.
There's no real reason.
Yeah, we'll watch that upgrade sit up in your corner there, upgrade me up for a good couple of months before now I'll upgrade.
Unless I
you.
know of a new security update that's coming down the road specifically to tackle a virus that has just been released on the public. If there's information like that floating out there, I'll go and update my system to make sure I have the newest virus definitions. But that'd be the only case I'd be wanting an update.
Have answering Shades of God's specific question, have either of you run into that in the store?
Not with that specific version yet, no.
Yeah,
but we get update issues all the time.
And then the compatibility of the CPU, I've had update issues on CPUs that are able to handle Windows 11, but it was an earlier generation CPU, and it runs into problems on the newer updates, and then I wait a month, and then they update just fine.
So would you I tend to put my money on that particular problem, that they have introduced a driver along with that update that is not compatible.
And then another thing you can attempt is if you know how to make a USB bootable of Windows 11, maybe you can download Windows 11 24H2 and see if you can fresh install it. Yeah. If you can fresh install Windows 11, that version, and see if you have any issues, just in case there's some sort of corruption that you already have on your drive that you're updating.
Well, that's true. You could fresh install 24H2 and install from scratch. It has updated by itself, yeah. So
you can pause updates for a couple
weeks,
weeks, I think, at least.
you can pause updates for 7 days.
Okay.
7 days, that's
7
it?
days.
Well, this guy's, whoever they're getting, every 2 weeks they're going to be back in the saddle again. That's
Every 7 days they'd have to press the button. Because you can pause it for 7 days, and then on the day before it's going to be unpaused, you can unpause it and pause it.
For the whole update, so I think it postpones them for the big ones.
Until you
for the big ones?
Yeah, because I know like security updates and things like that, I think it only lets you postpone it for 7 days. But I've seen customers that have been connected to the internet on Windows 11 and they're still on 22H2 or whatever.
Yeah, there's an option to notify but don't install.
Yeah, there's a check box in the check for updates location that you can turn off that says always get the latest updates. That could be part of it.
And then the other thing is ultimately...
fresh install, same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, then it could be down to compatibility. I don't know what CPU he's running with, or...
I'm going with some driver somewhere, to be my guess. And unfortunately...
Yeah, if
not gonna
if
get
you're
to know.
able to boot into safe mode and see if everything works okay in safe mode, then my advisement would be in safe mode, tracking down drivers that might be malfunctioning.
Yeah. Yeah. You could go to the manufacturer of your machine, and if it's new enough, and they'll still have a list of drivers there, and find the latest drivers for all of your
Hardware. And
Hardware.
then if you have a conventional hard drive, testing your hard drive with that free software HDD scan.
What's that driver software I stumbled on that scans your whole computer for all drivers? And it does back to open source. Let me see if I can find this, because, and I'm going to do this. There's going to be a disclaimer on this.
He does say it works perfectly fine before the update, so that makes me think less of a hardware issue.
Yeah.
That does seem to put most of my faith in it being a driver or a software issue.
Oh, he built his own or she. I'm not sure what we have. They built their own computer. That's the problem.
And he has a
no, I'm not.
and he has they have a AMD 5800X.
I want to introduce you to this program. It's called Snappy Driver Installer. So just Snappy Driver Installer. First of all, drivers, if anybody's watching this and they hose their computer as a direct result of this advice, we'll be happy to charge you to resolve that. No, it happens. I mean, drivers are a tricky business, and you can get it wrong. And doing anything like this can send you in the wrong direction as well as the right direction. You've got to be willing to accept that responsibility. But when it's simply not working, I use this on my brother's computer, and I've used it on my system since then. It did a fantastic job of finding what drivers were accurate in today's world for that computer. And it'll go out to the manufacturers, find those latest driver files, and update your entire device manager. Might be the cure.
A bunch of Ryzen CPUs are receiving a performance bump from the Windows 11 24H2 release. And then the article right before it is Windows 11 24H2 is driving people to Linux.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it talks about specific boosts in performance from 10 to 11% for that specific CPU. So they are focused on some sort of programming around that CPU in that update. So
could
from
be.
there,
But if you did the driver update before you did the install of the, not a fresh install, because you won't even have that option in a fresh install, but during an upgrade, if you were to update all your drivers before doing the update for the 24H2, that might get you out of the soup. That's what I would do personally.
and also, please do a restore point before doing anything driver related.
yeah, restore points are a saving grace for a lot
System
of
restore,
situations.
absolutely. Create a restore
Can we
point.
show them how to make a restore point?
Yeah.
I think that's important for all Windows users.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So we're going to show you how to create a restore point. In Windows, you're going to bring up your start menu, and you are just going to type in the word restore. And you see the second one
Create a
down says
restore point.
create a restore point. Well,
You can do
what's
that.
that magnifying thing?
Windows key
Windows.
plus.
Windows Plus. All right, here we go. All right. So you see right there, create a restore point. I've got 4 monitors, so sometimes it does a little of that back and forth thing. But I'll do that. Do our best to keep it on one screen. There we are. And here we have a little button down at the bottom that says create.
And if that is grayed out, the button above it, configure, will allow you to enable that create button to be there.
Okay, yeah, manage disk space and delete restore points, I see.
So you'll see also local disk C system, you'll see protection is toggled to on here. If it says off, you can highlight that and then click on configure to set it up so that it does. I think that means it makes the automatic ones on
So
updates.
I
and
didn't
things
even
like
know
that.
this. Can I turn on I and E for a restore point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn on system. So I've got E clicked, and if I hit configure,
Then yes, you can
turn on
for
system
both.
protection.
Yeah.
And that allows you to create restore points.
But that won't, you know what, but there's almost no benefit to do E or I because it only really
The system restore point is restoring specifically Windows files.
operating system
Exactly.
stuff. So it's not gonna restore data that you've lost.
Or deleted.
It's
or
not
anything
a
like
backup. It's just kind of a way to revert bad changes. If you installed a piece of
You
software.
threw it way off the
Whoa.
side.
Oh.
So by typing, it throws.
Oh,
but
it
hold on a
throws you all
second.
the way to the side?
So I'm just gonna type that off screen. All right. So now
Podcast
I've typed
restore.
in podcast restore, and I'm going to click create, and it's going to create a restore point.
And basically that makes a log of everything in the Windows operating system files on how it booted and how the system was functioning, so that if you ran into an issue with blue screens or crashing, you can go back to the restore point and be able to boot the system up how it was originally booting.
So that restore point's been created. Doesn't take very long. I've got a lot going on my machine. And we get out of that magnifying glass. All right, and bring us back up to normal. By George, we pulled it off.
All right.
But that's a good thing just to have.
And I've got a
just in
restore
case
point.
things start failing.
Yeah, yeah. That's important to do before you start working on drivers. I agree.
Yeah.
That and backups, of course. We will be redundant on saying in a lot of our podcasts that backups are super important, and that's because we've been doing this for 20 years, and we see a lot of people lose a lot of data over that amount of time by not backing up things that are important to them.
Back that thing up. Yep.
Especially if you use QuickBooks Desktop, we can't stress that enough too, is finding where your QuickBooks file lives if you have a small business, making sure that's backed up.
And we did have an instance at one point with QuickBooks, and I was thinking about bringing up this story because it's a pretty intense one. A client came in who had lost their QuickBooks file, and we were able to find it, find out when it was deleted, and then the owner of the business was able to find out that that person was doing something with their money, moving money. And so they deleted the file because they knew they were going to find it. And we were able to pull the file back up, and the owner of the company was able to find out that they were being messed with by the bookkeeper.
Oh, those
careful
darn
of your
bookkeepers,
bookkeepers.
man.
We got
Yikes.
lucky, but not when we first started. That is a lesson in business. Is we had a bookkeeper who did us a little dirty way back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. It was, you know, I don't think it was intentional on her part. It was just negligence more than anything in that case. But yeah,
Also,
but I've
good reason
seen
to-
very bad
yeah.
things happening with bookkeepers, and you know, like people in general. You know, you got good, bad, and indifferent. So we won't be too tough on bookkeepers because God knows
We need 'em.
I need
The world
mine.
needs them. Yeah.
And Lisa, if you're watching this, I'm certainly not
important
talking
to us.
about you. All right.
Well, we are talking about Lisa in the ways of we do need you.
Right.
And eBay Ukraine Hum still sitting good on XP. Nice job.
XP, like Windows XP?
Like Windows XP.
Wow.
It's a stable environment if you can get away with it.
That's kind of unbelievable.
I don't know how you pull up the internet, but maybe that's on his personal machine and not the one he's helping people on eBay with.
You got the old pinball on there?
Yeah, the old pinball game. I remember that.
That's true.
It's a good one.
When I was younger, I actually believed that my father had programmed that game. I was under the imaginary influence because he was the computer guy. Even back then, I remember I would tell my friend, "My dad made that game."
That's really funny.
That is comical.
I just assumed, things with technology. I think you showed me the pinball game one day,
sure,
and then
sure.
I just had to show all my friends because it was on everybody's machine.
Hey, that'd be quite the thing if your father made that.
Yeah,
and it
I
went
felt
all
pretty
o-
silly.
all
I
over.
thought it for a long time. I think I was like 10 or 11 years old before it finally clicked that was an illusion that I was under.
Funny.
Oh, that's
All
good.
right, and Shades of God is going to make us restore point. Good on you. Backing up data, restore points, and then because it's an update issue, I would say there is an amount of patience I would probably apply for that specific one, and research. Open up ChatGPT if you got it. I'm a huge fan of utilizing all the different resources you can on research, and ChatGPT is a big one.
ChatGPT, oh yeah.
It's a big one.
Yeah, and in fact, I use two different artificial intelligence software. I use ChatGPT mainly, and I use one called Claude AI.
Claude.
Because I have found, and I didn't...
Who makes Claude?
Claude didn't do the job at the beginning, but now they're good. And I don't know about everything, but for a programmer who's looking to find out if that programming code, to please create code that does this, this, and this, ChatGPT was ahead of all of them, and Claude has caught up to them, at least from the coding standpoint. So now, in my average day, I'm saying, I need a piece of code that does this, this, and this, and I'll get from one, and then I'll get from the other, and I'll compare. I'll see who does a better job, and go with that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
And-
You would take its answer and copy and paste it into the other one, so the AI are just slowly
What I do,
critiquing
I take the
and
same
helping them
question
out.
and I paste my question and screenshots in both at the same time, and see. And sometimes I'll tell one or the other. Say, I'm sorry, Claude beat you to the finish.
Yeah.
That's
you know,
funny.
or
Yeah.
you know, ChatGPT gave me an accurate result.
And a funny one, for using ChatGPT, this is something that my father has used before and I just started picking up on, is if you need it explained to you in simpler terms, you can always ask the question and then ask it to describe it to you as if you were a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been using that one more recently just to have it bring itself down from, using a bunch of acronyms or talking above people's heads, and it'll be able to eliminate any of the confusion. I've asked it about quantum mechanics and explain it to me like a 10-year-old.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Just so I could get some of these complex thoughts
Yeah.
down to a very simple form, being able to explain.
Quantum mechanics
That's
to
cool.
a 10-year-old. Wow, I'd like to know that one myself.
Yeah.
It was a little silly. I had to bump it up to teenage and then
Oh,
to
yeah,
college, just because it was getting a little bit too much like story time.
You didn't fall asleep while they were telling you the story, did
No,
you? Okay,
no,
all right,
I was well
all right.
entertained.
How about you? Use AI very much?
Yeah, I'd say a decent amount. It's helpful in my day-to-day, or just fact-checking something and looking at something online in Google and then saying, what do you find on this same topic? And a lot of times it's just a good backup thing to use to check in on something that you may not be so confident about.
All right.
And I use it for philosophical discussions where I'll take people throughout history, ancient philosophers and rulers and generals and stuff like that, and I'll get them all at the same
Frickin'
table.
You are a highbrow
I'll
dude,
get them
man.
all at the same table, and I'll
Quantum
see,
mechanics
I'll see what
and
they talk about. I'll say,
The great books and
what would these people have in common, and what would they strike up a conversation and get along about? And then I'll listen to them ask each other's questions, and then I'll chime in.
All right.
It's fun.
Wow.
It's fun.
Well, I can't put myself in that category, but
I have not looked up that sort of stuff.
I heard something on a podcast not too long ago, and this is how I feel about it. We should be thinking in a chat GPT, in an AI first mentality. That's how we should be thinking. So when we've got something that we're trying to figure out, instead of straining our brains like we are accustomed to doing, you get the app for your whatever AI you're using. Ask the question. Don't feel bad about it. You feel guilty. Oh, maybe I'm making myself stupid. I know the answer to this. I don't need to ask them.
Well, it's extremely helpful. I do enjoy the good old-fashioned brain function, figure it out. But I get that there is nothing more helpful than ChatGPT and other AI formats at this moment. There's nothing that can collect as much data from the outside world and then put it on a platter in front of you in the shortest amount of time. There's nothing better.
No, they can screw you up too. I mean,
Yeah, they can say things that are wrong, and then you can
Completely
fact
wrong.
check them on it.
and they can say it
I've
with
had
complete
that.
confidence. They
Yeah.
call it hallucinations, where they speak to you with great authority about what the resolution to this problem
And
is.
then you go, wait a second, did you just say this? Because I know that's not true. And then it goes, my apologies.
Yeah.
That was not,
Oh,
that was
Yeah,
definitely
I've been
wrong.
there before.
I literally,
So you got to watch it. Don't just take it all at face value. Definitely ask the questions more than once if it seems like the answer is a little bit off.
as a quick confession,
Yeah.
3 or 4 days ago, ChatGPT, fixing a problem with my virtual machine environment because
The coding thing.
my own problem. I let my iDrive max out at 100%. That's a sin. All right, nobody should do that.
Okay.
Don't ever let your hard drive go to 100% full or close to 100%.
Yeah, that's for most technology.
Because things will start to break, and I know that. But I've got like 6 drives on my computer, and I've got 6,000 things technologically that I'm juggling all day long and doing. And I saw that drive filling up, and I let it go too far, and so my bad. And it hosed one of my virtual machines, and so I'm like, okay, ChatGPT, this is the error message. And if anybody knows anything about ZFS, the end result is the ZFS metadata got corrupted, and so all 6 of my drives that
Wait,
were rated
first off,
together.
what's metadata?
Yeah, I'm going to get a little geeky right there, but some of you might be able to hang on. So it killed my metadata, which unfortunately made my 6 perfectly working drives unaccessible to me. So I'm like, okay, I've never dealt with that before. ChatGPT, this is my error. ZFS, metadata, what do I do? Boom, boom, boom. It starts spitting out knowledge. I mean, great over-the-top knowledge about ZFS and metadata and everything.
And how to solve
Oh,
the
right,
problem.
that's great. So one after another, I'm just copy and pasting. I mean, I'm looking at it, and it looks logical enough, you know. And if it didn't look logical, I wouldn't be doing it. And I know enough about this stuff to where I went ahead and worked with it. But then, at some point, I noticed my virtual machine just, poof, disappeared from the interface on VirtualBox.
no.
And it's like, oh, that's not a good thing. And I look back at ChatGPT, and I look at that last command, and
This is a delete
I said,
function
"What's
in there.
that? What's that flag right there?" You know, it's like a dash F
Yeah.
and a string of complex characters, and explains that that's to delete the virtual machine file. And now it didn't. It was completely retrievable. I had the backups and
Yeah.
all that for what it had in fact told me to delete, and then it apologized.
Whoa.
It apologized. Oh yeah,
Afterwards.
we should not have blah 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 blah. This is the right approach, and it, you know, whitewashes it, pretends it never happened, go on to the next thing, and I'm left dealing with the fallout.
So there's two important lessons there. Is most technology will get corrupted if the hard drive space is full, and that goes on the Mac side and on the PC side.
Yeah.
And I believe that is time.
It's 11:04. We got to get to work. You can hear the phones ringing. We
Have
are
a
in
good
a
People
rest
are
of the
coming to the
Tuesday.
door.
I'm going to give you a shot at center, no talent. I mean, not talent. I mean, yeah, no talent. Okay. So now we'll look at the camera. For those of you that have not seen it, VLC, not VOC. There is our showroom camera. And Douglas is going out there right now to unlock that front door. Our building is much bigger than what you see there, but this is the environment where our clients come in, take a look at our computers, sit down at the desk, get interviewed for whatever their problems are. Let's see, close that.
Take care.
All right, you want to say, oh, here comes a customer. Let's get this on camera. Now, I don't have any way of zooming in on that one, but you get the idea. That's how it works when a customer comes in the door. They sit down, Douglas or Auren or myself, or usually Douglas or Auren will wait on them, and very comfortable environment. Anyway, thanks for watching.